So Elon Musk is causing controversy again, this time not because of faking his elite gaming credentials or promoting meme coins about dogs or calling divers pedophiles. I mean, honestly, this guy is in the headlines every week about something new. I guess that's to be expected for the richest man in the world. This time he's in trouble for raising his arm in a way that sort of looks like a Nazi salute. Seriously, the controversy is wild. It's all throughout social media right now. Reddit has basically banned X links or Twitter links or whatever you want to call it throughout 90% of their subs. There's even been back and forth about this during the confirmation hearings in the Capitol. To be fair, in a vacuum, it's kind of hard to say that it's not a Nazi salute. It created a really confusing debate about what actually qualifies as a Nazi salute and what is kind of a standard, if not awkward, wave to the crowd. I wanted to try my best at doing a fairly neutral breakdown of each side of the argument that can create some clarity here and hopefully come to a conclusion that's logical. I do need to point out, though, I'm not completely unbiased on this, but I'll try to leave my own opinions out of this for fairness sake. Let's begin with the argument that Elon actually knowingly made a Nazi salute. The main arguments for this take are as follows. Basically, one, it really, really does look like a Nazi salute. I mean, what is this debate even about? So that's the argument I've seen a lot on social media. A lot of people just incredulous. I bet anyone could deny the obvious fact that, at least in their eyes, that Elon made a Nazi salute. And again, at first glance, it does look like what would one imagine a Nazi salute to be like. I mean, like 100%. So most people have this take seem pretty committed to their own view and aren't interested in discussing it further, which I can kind of understand, honestly, because if they truly believe it's a cut and dry issue, then why would they want to waste their time arguing with people who, at least in their opinion, are blind or are brainwashed or whatever you want to think. If you're in that group, you're probably not going to enjoy the rest of this video, as we're definitely going to play devil's advocate here. So it may be a good time to dip, just a heads up. The response or rebuttal to that take is pretty much just pointing out that a lot of the circulated clips of Elon doing this seem to be ignoring the context of Elon saying he is just giving his heart out to the crowd after the gesture.
Thank you. My heart goes out to you.
I mean, that seems like pretty important context, as at the very least, it is plausible, or at least provides a plausible explanation of why he made that arm movement, besides just being, a generic Heil Hitler salute. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not trolling or that he secretly really meant it to be a Nazi salute or is just using the heart-giving comment as like a cover. After all, Elon has been known to troll like quite a good bit. But it does make clear that there are at least other options besides the most obvious visual explanation. As far as the heart goes out to you gesture, it's actually pretty common. You can find various videos of other politicians or famous people doing it, like French President Macron, or as I point out in my other video, Tim Walz, who performed it, which you can check out in the description of this video. Speaking of that video, regarding Tim Walz, there are some really high IQ folks out there accusing me of cropping out Tim's hand, because apparently the angle of his hand was more like a wave than a Nazi salute. And apparently that was so obvious that I must have edited that out on purpose. In reality, though, I just pulled the clip from the live stream without thinking, as I really didn't think it mattered as far as the exact angle of his hand, that being the qualifier of it actually being a Nazi salute or not. I guess they expected me to pull out a compass and measure it, the exact circumference of Tim and Elon's hand, and utilize some Nazi hand gesture manual to cross-reference it. It sounds ridiculous, but it's actually a really common argument right now. I think it's just extremely pedantic and unserious, and it's also really susceptible to confirmation bias. Then, of course, you have people saying Elon should have known what the gesture would look like, which I guess goes back to the whole trolling / dog whistling theory. It's a fair criticism, in my opinion. On its face, it does look like a duck and quack like a duck. So how could Elon not know this duck looked like a Nazi duck? I think an equally fair rebuttal, though, would be that Elon is just weird. Not just what he says, but how he moves. I mean, look at him come on stage. Yeah, he just looks like a goofball. And this goes back for years. Elon has admitted to being on the autism spectrum, and socially awkward behavior is common among people on that spectrum. Now, some have come out and said that they are also autistic and they know not to make gestures like that. They know not to make a Nazi salute, or at least something that looks like a Nazi salute. But there are also various levels of autism, or Asperger's, or whatever you want to call it. Not everyone is the same or behaves in a similar way. So I pretty much discount that argument. Another argument is that Elon has a history of anti-Semitic behavior. So it's not shocking that he would give the Nazi salute or hold Nazi beliefs. This is a pretty complex claim, honestly. He said some things in the past that could be seen as anti-Semitic, like agreeing with a Twitter X whatever post claiming Jews were targeting white people. He did go on to clarify, though, that he didn't mean all Jews. Isn't a great clarification, but at least he made that point. To his credit, later he claimed it was one of the most foolish, if not the most foolish thing I've done. The rest of the critique seemed to imply that by insulting or attacking George Soros as an influential billionaire power broker, that he's spreading anti-Semitic tropes, because George Soros is obviously Jewish. This doesn't seem like a very convincing argument. Soros doesn't represent all Jews, and all Jews aren't George Soros. To counterbalance this, he has also made some statements praising Jewish people, going up to even saying that he was aspirationally Jewish, whatever that means. There are some weaker arguments, like claiming that because he's from South Africa and from an apartheid state, that he himself must be racist. I just kind of toss those aside because they're not really worthy of rebuttal, given how ridiculous that is. For the record, Elon's family, they're known to have been prominent critics of apartheid, and Elon has claimed that he himself avoided mandatory military service in South Africa to avoid service to the apartheid regime. Now, whether you believe that or not, that is what he claims. I want to go back a second, though, to the salute itself. There are some videos floating around showing neo-Nazis doing what they themselves must think is a Nazi salute. And in all fairness, it does look a lot like Elon's, where they each grab their heart and then extend their arm forward at an angle in the air. However, interestingly enough, this doesn't actually seem to be the case when it comes to the actual Nazis of World War II. Looking at old footage and historical descriptions of the salute, it almost always seems to be a straight arm raise from the waist with no grip of the heart. Technically speaking, and I know this is pedantic, but let's face it, this whole controversy is kind of pedantic. Neither Elon, Tim, Macron, or the neo-Nazis actually did the Nazi salute. Technically. So now that we've covered some of the main arguments here, I want to talk about motive. Namely Elon's. To accept the premise that he knowingly made a Nazi salute, you'd have to ask yourself, why would he do that? If there isn't a reason, it doesn't make sense. And if it doesn't make sense, it isn't likely. We could go back to the first choice, which is trolling. A lot of people pointed out that Elon hasn't apologized for making the salute, or the gesture of the salute, and that makes him appear guilty of something. And that, added with the fact that Elon made some really edgy Nazi puns in response to this, makes it clear, at least in their mind, that he did it on purpose. Honestly, it's partly a fair critique, and it's partly not. On one hand, Elon didn't do himself any favors with his post-gesture behavior, and maybe he would have taken some of the heat off himself if he did, but that doesn't mean he meant it as a Nazi salute. Elon is a big proponent of the anti-woke movement, and honestly, he may view apologizing for something he didn't do, or at least something he believes he didn't do, as capitulation. The puns afterwards could very well be his way of just telling his critics to F off, which he has done in the past multiple times. He has also since denied that he made the salute, so he's denying that it was a troll. The idea that he meant to give the Nazi salute in a genuine racist way seems highly unlikely. He wasn't raised in a culture that gave Nazi salutes. The gesture he made wasn't a Nazi salute, technically, and it would give him no benefit to give a Nazi salute to an American audience unless you honestly believe that the majority of the American voting public are Nazis that would support the Nazi salute as a dog whistle. I mean, maybe a lot of you do believe that, in which case I don't think that any amount of logic will convince you otherwise. So then, if it's not on purpose, and if it's not trolling, then it must be an accident. A really unfortunate miscalculation in the form of an awkward, yet common heart-to-crowd arm gesture from a man with a controversial mouth who says and does things in a manner consistent with someone who is on the autism spectrum. Now, I rate that as the most likely explanation, honestly, and I attribute a lot of this controversy to partisan or personal dislike of Elon, which is totally fair. And also confirmation bias. You may not like Elon, but I do not believe that equates to him being a Nazi. You may disagree. Please let me know in the comments if I missed anything with my rundown. Like and subscribe for more content. See ya. Bye-bye.